Welcome to All Core Devs number 234. Today's April 9th. I will be filling in for Ansgar today. We have a few things on the agenda, a lot of little things. We'll talk about Planstream DevNet updates, some engine API changes, some housekeeping for Haggoda, AA topics, and then some miscellaneous items if those all get talked about in time. Okay. For Glamsterdam, do we have any DevNet updates?
I can start. We launched yesterday Val DevNet 3 with pretty much all the clients. So that was pretty nice. Most of them seemed pretty ready until I started fuzzing a little bit. And there are some issues with gas accounting that still came up. It is still under investigation. I shared some of the information with the clients that I've been able to obtain, but there are still some EIP clarifications for 837 that we have to make to ensure that these inconsistencies between clients are covered in the spec. And then I think there are also some changes to the execution specs that we need to make sure that these things are caught earlier. I'll also create some issues on the EIP once I have a better understanding. So it seems that there is some issue with the spillover gas where depending on if there is enough gas left, you can either take it from the state gas or the regular gas. And if there isn't anything in those reservoirs, it spillovers to the gas left, the previous implementation. And then there's the question if that is either state or regular in case there's a refund. There's also some edge cases for special opcodes on reverts where clients treat that differently. Maybe some clients that have already looked into it could give some insight. It also seems that in one case where Geth has forked off, it might be that Geth is actually implementing it correctly from what I can see so far, and other clients might not. But in general, I think it's something where the spec needs to be also clarified a little bit more. Maybe someone from Geth that can talk about if they've done some investigation already, what their view is here.
Anyone from Geth? Okay, well, if Geth wants to follow up async, then are there any other execution layer clients that have been looking into this? Okay, Stefan, where should the execution layer clients go async to follow up on this?
Yeah, in the Steel Discord, we're generally sharing all the information. And
Great.
yeah, like it's something that is still kind of pretty fresh since we launched yesterday evening. And I think we'll figure it out. And then I hope the clients are gonna sync again. I hope we don't need another DevNet. We'll see. Also, it would be good to see if we can get the spec clarified as much as possible.
Good. Great. Anything else on DevNets?
I can give a few comments about APBS DevNet 1. We have launched a few days ago, and it's been not going that great. We are still trying to figure out what is actually going on. We have clients that are disconnecting from each other. We have clients that are banning their own client. There's peering bugs. There seems to be some consensus bugs. There are clients which create multiple forks of each other. So at this point, we are still working hard on trying to get DevNet 1 either up and running or just restart it maybe sometime next week.
Okay, great. Thanks. Tony, do you want to say anything more about missing tests for those edge cases?
Not really. I think
Okay.
this is it just seems obvious that if we're struggling so much on DevNet 3 that they should have been caught with test cases, I guess.
Okay. Great. And okay, so moving on from DevNets, I made a PR to adjust the definition of SFI. I will ask people to take a look at that. We won't make any decisions today, but it would be a topic we would talk about at interop. Basically just making SFI more descriptive and have a better definition so we know when to move things to SFI. And that will apply to Spencer's ask for moving things to SFI, because right now in 773, the Glamsterdam Meadow, we have no SFIs except for the headliners. And so this would better inform us on when to move things to SFI. And the definition that I proposed is based on an ACDE call from a couple weeks ago. So just take a look at that and maybe think about it before folks go to interrupt. So moving on to engine API changes. Mikhail, do you want to talk about, I put these all together. One of them is related to Glamsterdam, but you can take the mic for all of them.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. So I'll be brief. I'll try to. So, all right. So the first change that we have in the list is allow zero, safe, and finalized block hash to be passed to the EL. So the context for this change is that CL clients wants to start from a checkpoint to do a checkpoint sync from a non-finalized checkpoint. And in this case, the CL client will basically know the finalized block route, but it will not have the finalized payload hash in its database. So and the same for the safe block hash. So what's proposed here is actually to pass a zero hash as a kind of a default or like unknown value for the finalized and for the safe block hash. And the EL should actually, if it receives this unknown value, if it receives all zero hash, basically should stick with the finalized block hash it knows, because it might already been synced in the past and it has some finalized block hash in the database. The nuance here is that eventually the finalized block hash will be resolved somehow, and the safe block hash will be found by the CL by running the fast confirmation rule, for instance. So these two hashes are kind of like separate in that regard. So the finalized block hash could be all zeros, for instance. The safe block hash at the same time could be some existing block hash, a block hash of an existing block. So basically, here is the proposal. It requires the implementation changes on the EL side, and yeah, that's basically to announce it here and to invite EL developers and also CL developers to look at this proposal and to further discuss. So I don't know if there are any questions, please just stop me. Otherwise, I'll just move to the next one. So the next one is EPBS related, and yeah, to give you some context behind this change, I should yeah. So there is like an optimization in the fork choice updated. It's done for the case when, for instance, AL has been synced already, and the CL is restarted from scratch, and its database is like basically wiped out, and it starts syncing. while EL already knows a big chunk of canonical chain, and it might be even close to the head of canonical chain. And then CL will, depending on implementation, will be sending the new payload and fork choice updated to the EL with the blocks that are already known as canonical, that are valid. So in this case, we have a shortcut path for the fork choice updated handling. It basically says that in the case where the fork choice updated, the head in this update points out to the already validated and valid block, which is ancestor of the head in observation to the execution layer. The execution layer may basically skip the fork choice updated call, like basically just skip the update. And in this case, it also, in the case of the skip, EL must not build a payload like on top of that block. For EPBS, it's not going to work because in EPBS, a valid payload could be reworked out because it was not timely. And this proposal kind of like handling this in a way that the reorg to the ancestor of the head, even if it's valid, becomes possible. And also EL should start building a payload if there are payload attributes in the fork choice updated call. But to find a middle ground between that optimization that I have mentioned and the EPBS cases, it's suggested to have like only 32 blocks reorg in this case, like not the depth of reorg should not be more than 32 blocks. But the nuance here is that all other reorgs where the actually head is from the conflicting block tree branch, the reorg should happen regardless of of that 32 block limit. So that's kind of it. I think it's important for EPBS. So please take a look, comment out, and let's continue on GitHub or ask questions here if you have.
Great. Any comments on that one? Otherwise, we will move to Hagoda.
I actually have a very small temperature check on the engine API, if we may.
Go for it.
All right, so this is related to the save block tag. We want to reuse it for the fast confirmations for fast confirm block. But the problem is that the save block currently points out to the justified block. And the alternative of not just reusing it, repurposing it for the fast confirm block is to be like introducing the justified and confirmed block tags and justified block hash and confirmed block hash to the engine API. I was just going to ask if we take this route of introducing justified and confirmed, will it be possible to do it without reorg, or will we have to push this change to, say, to Amsterdam or some other hard fork for coordination purposes? Dustin, I hear from you, but there are some concerns about like that somebody might use save block, so as justified. And we have to make a decision. So that's why I'm making this temperature check.
If I remember correctly, there was an attempt to reach out to those who might use SafeBlock earlier last year.
Yeah.
Okay, so the ask is if anybody knows anybody who uses the SafeBlock tag that they should.
Yeah, that's the other thing we would like to know, but I'm just trying to understand if like introducing new block tags require hard fork. I know that from the engine API standpoint, it does not, because we can just introduce a new version of some the choice updated, for instance, function. But from the coordination perspective, it might not work for clients, just to implement these. And from scope and perspective as well, because everyone is busy with with Glamsterdam at the moment.
The more formal argument, the less snarky argument I would make here is actually that it was never formally defined to begin with. It was introduced from the beginning in the Engine API as this kind of placeholder, and it got slightly less placeholdery over time, but it was never really pinned down with useful semantics to begin with. So FCR is actually the first time somebody has put particularly thought through semantics into it, and from my perspective, there's just nothing lost.
Do we have any more insight on whether or not that would require a fork? I think that was the ask for adding justified and confirmed. Okay. Mikhail, do you have a place where people can discuss this async if they want to follow up with us?
Yeah, sure. I would say that the Discord JSON RPC API room would be the best one for this discussion.
Okay, great. Before we move on to Higota, Tony, Barnabas, do we want to discuss the Ball DevNet 4 versus Glamsterdam DevNet 0 question that you guys are discussing in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I think considering how the DevNet is going right now, I see an argument to be made that we should have another DevNet 4 instead of a Glamsterdam DevNet 0 straight away, where we merge EPBS with the execution implementations. We've already got quite a few. And Tony is asking to add 2 more repricing EIPs to that. So I can see the point, and I think considering how it's going, it would make sense to have a DevNet 4. But that would extend the timeline, of course. Maybe someone else wants to add something to that.
I would personally prefer to have a merged DevNet before the end of April. And the only realistic time frame for that is if we do not have a Ball DevNet 4 anymore, but rather we start sprinting into merging the 2 branches together.
Yeah, the main reason is also that with a merged DevNet, we can be extra productive on it at interop.
Yeah, I think those are very good points. So maybe we can just take the 2 data repricing EIPs and then just put them on Glamsterdam DevNet 0. Both of them are very contained. Talking about the 2 data repricing EIPs, I think Felix has done a great job on working on the tests. So yeah, I think the risk is very low that we break that DevNet with those.
Is there a benefit in including them? I would actually rather not include anything new, but rather keep the scope as contained as possible, not including any new ELPs, and just focusing on merging the feature set from both of them.
Yeah, maybe we can follow along async. I think most clients have implementations for those already. It's both of those are very minimal. So it might just be worth it. It's the 2 that Marius presented ACDE 2 weeks ago, where he recommended that we should add them to the next DevNet. But yeah, I don't have a strong opinion in it, but it could make sense.
So I think my understanding was one of the benefits was it would allow us to also test larger block limits, right, Tony? Because
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I
the
think
data
right
cost
now,
was, yeah, it was one of
go ahead.
the blockers. Yeah, I would say the cost of data was one of the blockers for testing higher block limits in a DevNet. And initially we were discussing it, including it even in DevNet 3 because of that issue, but then we ended up not including it. So that would be one benefit.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is a very good point, actually. Yeah.
I also have a question regarding having a join Amsterdam DevNet. So we do have a couple of questions around 8037 that were delayed for DevNet 4. So one of them was because of the testing infrastructure, we are not using the dynamic cost. We are just assuming a fixed cost. And then we said that we would do the dynamic cost in the next DevNet. Would it be the goal to do the current version of the specs for 8037, that we have now, and merge it with EPBS, or would we try to also tackle those in the merged DevNet?
That's a great question. Maybe could clients maybe say something about how much work it is to make it variable?
This is one of the reasons why I would prefer DevNet 4. This is just a preference. I wouldn't mind like doing much DevNet, but there are a few like edge cases in 8037 is full of those, and we have like paintings that we moved for the next DevNet, and we simplified 8037 for DevNet 3 because it's like a big change that everybody needs to do.
How about in this case, we look at EPBS DevNets until Monday. If it looks like they're going to be stable, then we can work on Glamsterdam DevNet 0 and like very rapidly iterate to Glamsterdam DevNet 1, where all of these changes are included. If it looks like EPBS is not going to be stable by Monday, then probably BAL DevNet 4 is the logical conclusion there. Does that sound like a reasonable path forward?
Just make sure I understand though. So in that case, if we have a stable EPBS DevNet, then we would be doing the Glamsterdam DevNet with the current specs of Ball DevNet 3 and not
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and the implicit understanding there is in the future we're more tightly coupling everything, so we won't be able to move at the speed of the fastest moving change, but rather the slowest moving change.
Great. To summarize, so if the EPBS DevNet is stable by Monday, we'll move to a Glamsterdam DevNet without the two added gas repricings that were just proposed. Is that correct?
I thought we would add them, but maybe I misunderstood.
To Glamsterdam DevNet 0, we wouldn't add them. To Glamsterdam DevNet 1, we would add them, and the time delay between those two would be very short.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Great. Anything else on that? Otherwise, we will move on to Higota. Okay. So just to reiterate decisions from the previous call so that everybody is on the same page here. Frame transactions were CFI'd not as a headliner, but as a non-headliner. And there was some disagreement about the specific implementation. And so we are broadly considering frame transactions CFI'd as a placeholder to decide on an AA direction, which means that the people working on AA proposals need to work together to figure out the best way to move forward. Does anybody have any contention with that view of the outcome? If not, I will point out that that means that our headliner proposal process is complete, which means that we can now propose non-headliner proposals. So if you have a non-headliner proposal, feel free to open a PR against the Glamstram meta or the Hagoda meta, which I think is like 8081 if I'm remembering correctly. And then we have no end date right now. We're going to work through interop, and we will commit to at least giving 2 weeks notice, maybe perhaps 4 weeks notice before closing that deadline. Any questions there? Great. Then we will move on to Antonio, who wants to give a 2-minute plea on account obstruction.
Right. Can you actually hear me?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I thanks for summarizing the status quo, Nick. So I agree with what you said. I mean, this was actually what the decision was. Just like to see my point of view is, not knowing too much the process and so on. But from my perspective, like there was like a generic not agreement on the frame transaction proposal. But I think like all the core dev, I won't talk in the name of everyone, we're kind of agree that native account abstraction is a good topic for having a headliner in Agota. And of course, like I come with my post-quantum transaction signature hat in mind, and from my perspective, this is really important as well to have it in Agota. And I was just wondering if there's any chance to reconsider or review, reframe the decision of not having it like a headliner. Because again, it was a long call, I understand that, but from my view, there was not a contention on native account abstraction, but a contention if frame transaction was the right proposal. And if we can see on the view of putting a generic native account abstraction headliner, not a specific EIP, I think there is still time to find a proper EIP that with the modification that we had in mind on the non-perfect frame transaction. And these are my 2 minutes, basically. Thanks a lot for giving me the chance.
Antonia, do you see any reason that like any goal of native account abstraction as a focus in the port can't be accomplished as being CFI'd as a non-headliner?
Sure. I mean, also like CFI is good, but I mean, my understanding of headliner is like to have a kind of North Star for a single for a single release. So I think that deserves the case of being a headliner because it's a really important topic. People have been working for a long time on it, and now we really have the really important use case of the post-quantum. Is not the only one, but I mean, again, I come with the post-quantum use case in mind, and I think we're missing a chance, and we are missing an opportunity to do the right thing, and doing only because the process was not like designed for this specific nuance is a pity. I mean, again, not the critic here to the process, just like what I read on the last conversations, like that was really like a gap in the process that, yeah, we proposed the frame transactions headliner, people did not agree, but everyone actually agree on the native account abstraction somehow, a more generic topic. So will be a missed opportunity, in my opinion. That, again, like my 2 cents.
Okay. Would anybody disagree with moving forward with basically keeping it CFI'd as a non-headliner right now and having the AA folks work together, and if they can come up with something that garners a large amount of support, then talking about switching it to a headliner, which the implication of that, yes, Lumi, would be that we would delay Hagoda if it's not done. We would make Hagoda's release dependent on that being done. Ukash.
So I'm jumping ahead here, and we'll leave Ben to show his proposal. But Ben yesterday published a very interesting ERC solution, which doesn't need consensus changes and does everything account abstractions tries to do except post-quantum signatures, which would have to be done in a separate transaction type. Yeah, this is an alternative to native account abstraction. In my opinion, it's potentially better and simpler. So I would really like everyone to read it and give feedback.
Okay, we'll give Ben some time to talk about that. But first, Pedro.
Well, I would like to thank for the play. I think we need more statements like that. There is a lot of demand for this. We have navigated through account abstraction in multiple iterations, and as the chat is talking about, we do not need more half measures. I think that is the correct stance here. We need something that is truly native. I don't want to be coming into a core devs call and start comparing EVM to other machines, but realistically, this is something that has been lagging behind quite dramatically with the whole blockchain ecosystem. And the only reason for that is because it has never taken priority. And when we saw it being deprioritized, because in my opinion, removing it from the headliner, it seems like a deprioritization. It seems to be a risk that we're again in a situation where we're going to take another half measure. I really appreciate Ben for putting together an ERC, but the ERC defies the purpose of actually solving the problem natively. And this is something that should be done natively. I'm open to hearing for alternative proposals to 8141, but one thing that was very clear from the last call is that it was not actually discontent around 8141. There was only discontent around the maturity of our standard because it was written first version in January. It was not the fact that client teams actually disliked 8141, but they were skeptical about its maturity, given it was such a short window of time.
Antonio.
Yeah, just quickly to reply to Lucas. I mean, I didn't read the CRC yet, but I mean the fact that it doesn't cover the post-quantum transaction at the moment is like, again, I'm highly biased, but it's like really like the major use case at the moment, unless we are everyone in denial. I mean, it's already kind of minus, like really like the post-quantum transaction at the moment. If you read the news and the last development in the last days and weeks, I mean, it's kind of heavy at the moment. So let's
So
quickly.
let's give it maybe Ben room, but post-quantum are handled by different EIP, by Julio's scheme transactions EIP, so those can work and combined, and we can have both. This is not a problem.
We have some people with their hands raised. Do we mind if we skip to Ben real quick, just because we're already discussing it, and give him some mic time to actually talk about it? Okay, Ben, you want to take the mic real quick?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not very prepared. As I say, it was just this morning, but the topic was coming up today. So my team said I should present. It's as I said, it's an ERC. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. It's an ERC. It's not an EIP because it lives at the EVM level. So it's wallet title deeds, so account abstractions through NFTs. But the idea is to traditionally you have an EOA that is bonded to its custody, and the idea is to separate that link. So you instead bond a NFT, which is 721, to an address. So they become one thing, and your EOA is the signing key. And because of that, you separate the identity, the address that you're doing everything with, that is in the NFT, and you like invert how things work. So you would, if you want to do address rotation, you'd get a new EOA, and that could be a post quantum or pass keys or whatever, using different transaction type. And then you would transfer the NFT to that account, and you've done key rotation essentially, because now all the assets have moved from one account to another. So you've got transferable control there. And then you can do programmable smart control through it. So you can, you have, so the title deed is bonded to an account. The NFT's token ID, as it were, is actually an account, and it controls that account. And because it is also a smart contract at the same time, you can batch through it. You can, with a signature, you can do gas sponsorship, and so forth. So you can do key rotation without identity. So if you wanted to move your assets from your hot wallet, you would just move the NFT, and you can put it in your cold wallet, and it's taken everything inside that account and transferred it over. Or multi-sig, or however you want to do it, or post-quantum signature. And with that goes your Aave ENS name, Uniswap LP, your governance history, because it's attached to the transferable account address. But because it's an NFT, and the NFT is an account, and you can transfer it, you can also therefore put the NFTs inside each other. They can contain each other, and then you can create a EVM enforced organizational hierarchy, either because you want to do some layout, or perhaps you're an organization and you want to have your treasury separate from your engineering, your marketing, your operations, and you want to have secure trust boundaries. And that gives you approval scope risk isolation. So if you might have one branch of your account that you're doing, you have your solid assets in, and another one that you're using unknown DApps or whatever, and you don't want any crossover of those assets, but you also don't want to manage multiple EOAs to do that. You can do it through this structure. And then you can also do infrastructure-free gas sponsorship. So you can do the signing, which could be a batch sign that goes through the smart account. And unlike 4337, anybody can sponsor that. So that could be a friend. You don't need all the paymasters, the bundlers, anything like that. It could be your company might give you an account, delegate you to it, and then you can, and they sponsor all your transactions, for instance, or you're using a DEX, and CowSwap, for instance, you sign a transaction, you don't pay any gas, and they take it out the other end. So yeah, so the required infrastructure is none for the sponsorship path, because any EOA can relay. It's a standard EVM protocol transaction versus off-chain when it's wrapped. So you get so it works with Fossil and VOSP, which is the reduced state for validators, where you only keep the account try rather than necessarily all the state. Just run through. As I said, it works through both as fossil censorship resistance, these transactions, and VSOP. Sorry, I'm just going to go through quickly. So essentially, you're turning your wallet. It's no longer sort of an isolated island. They become transferable financial primitives. You can create a hierarchy of them. You can do gas sponsorship, key rotation. It works with fossil. It works with POP. You can do privacy withdrawal support. Yeah, there's a huge amount more to it. Like digital inheritance and AI accounts and all sorts of things. But yeah, so I just thought I'd present. Thank you for listening. Please check out the ERC.
Thank you. Toma, and do you have had your hand raised? Do you want to take the mic?
Yeah, sure. So I was wondering which was the process through which the frame transactions idea was moved from headliner down into a regular one. I was mostly wondering because usually we get all of the clients saying this, and the idea that I'm getting is that now we're trying to say if anyone is against this, but the decision is already taken. So I was wondering about that. And in contrast, I'm wondering why we are seeing an ERC that was published 14 hours ago as a potential contester against this, which was a headliner yesterday.
Okay, so to sort of clarify, the frame transactions was CFI'd as a non-headliner. Non-headliners are open for proposals starting today. The reason that it wasn't CFI'd as a headliner was because there was too much disagreement among clients about the best path forward. And so I think the idea is going to be that we get the AA folks to sort of agree on a best path forward. We would like them to work together, and if we can get strong consensus from a majority of clients on some proposal, then we can consider moving it up to a headliner again. In that vein, I think it would be good for the AA folks to have an AA breakout. Would anybody be willing to sort of champion a breakout, to host a breakout?
I would like to champion the breakout.
Okay, great. Can you get in? Well, protocol support will get in touch with you if you leave in the chat the best way to get in touch with you. Great. Parthas Sarathi?
Yeah, so yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that it's high time, as Pedro said, that we have native account abstraction in Ethereum. We've had several ERC measures since 2018, 2019. As a part of a team that runs wallet and has been running a smart account wallet since 2018, I should say the fragmentation in this space is already a lot. And if we are introducing another ERC and not native account abstraction, I'm not really sure if that would serve the purpose that Ethereum wishes. I agree with Pedro where we should probably be considering a proper native account abstraction as an EIP and not looking at ERCs anymore. That is my opinion. Thanks.
Great, thanks. Julio? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that it seems that so yes, okay, we CFI frames, but I mean I don't know how to put this, but I think it's a bit I think I just wanted to ask. Okay, whatever. I'm just gonna ask it. I'm gonna just bring it up again. Who here would actually prefer doing scheme transactions instead of frame transactions out of the clients? Because it seems to me like there is only one client that really wants to do frames, and I don't think that it realistically will get into the hard fork at this rate, to be honest.
Antonio.
Right. Again, not the developer here. You guys probably know me. I already expressed this to Julie in private. The thing is, like, it doesn't matter if it's going to be Frame or your solution, Julio. It's like, let's figure this out offline and in a kind of abstraction breakout room. The things like I want to point out is your solution probably was, I didn't look into the details yet, but it's probably okay, it's good. But I mean, you're comparing your solution that you thought for a couple of weeks compared to like 5 years maturing EIP that took in consideration all the corner cases. I will frame it not like competitors. I will frame it like something to add on the current frame transaction or like merging it. I will not frame it like a competitors. This is my perception. Not a developer here, but yeah.
No, I agree. Actually, I agree. I sorry. Yes. So maybe sorry if I passed around like that. What I meant is that the problems with frames, and I already said it again, has all to do with the verify frames part of the proposal. You can figure it out later, and you can decouple it from post quantum as well at the same time, right? You can have something with which you can do post quantum that's not contentious, and you can do it relatively much more easily later, anyways. That's it. But yes, I agree. They should be complementary. Like I don't want. This is not like a competition, of course.
Antonio.
Oh, sorry, I need to lower my hand. Sorry.
Okay, Nico.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I think one important point around the post-quantum stuff is that there are many easy ways to do it. We can just add a precompile and say it's done. But the goal here with the frame transaction is not just to have one post-quantum solution, but to have agility to move from one to another. And this is like a key requirement that we have if we want to survive in like a world where schemes are going to be broken fast. And there is simply no other proposition that is trying to tackle that. So I think if we want to compare like apples to apple, we want to have another solution that is also providing crypto agility. Else we're just comparing things that are not fitting the same requirements. So I just wanted to put that here. And we can discuss this in the next breakout.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say one quick thing. I added a PR that brings some of the ideas from the scheme transaction into frame. Obviously, scheme transactions are focusing on a slightly different problem. You know, they're saying we can bolt on the verify, type functionality later to the scheme transaction, which like may be true, but frame transactions are built from the ground up to allow that behavior because that's what most people believe is like what true native account abstraction actually means. And so I think that we should strive to actually achieve this and not take the easy shortcut. There are many very difficult problems that we still need to solve in Ethereum over the next 5 years. And if we can't even, solve this one, I worry about our ability to continue doing hard and complicated tasks on the execution layer.
You're gone.
I'd like to give small input on all of this. I think design on AI. AA is basically fluid, and we should iterate on it. I would urge people to think about the minimal mechanism they need for something to work for them. And I think design will clarify if we think about it, if we think about the minimal thing that we need.
I mean, that is the frame transaction. Like, we have thought a lot about what is the minimal thing. That's why we took the ideas from 7701 and tried to like minify it as much as possible. It's just like fundamentally allowing some execution to happen before the transaction is accepted as a like valid paying transaction is complex, and there will be some complexity there. I don't think it's as complex as most people make it out to be, but like, we're not really comparing apples to apples in most of these situations. Like, scheme transactions provide only like a very small subset of functionality that the frame transaction provides. And like, if we're going to compare them, like, let's compare them and find a good solution. But like, let's compare two things that are achieving the same functionality.
The thing that basically I want to iterate on is basically if we have some use case that we want to fulfill, not just making most generic platform ever. It is use case that you want to fulfill, and it is use case that you want to have everybody move to that use case, to that mechanism that you want to implement. So for the frame transaction, I don't think the having access to every transaction field is needed. We can like do something like simpler with the hash. We can do simpler things, but the core ideas we need to clarify those. What are the most basic mechanisms that we need to explore these kind of things? That's why I'm urging everybody to like think in that flow, in that direction.
What's the best way to like think in that direction? Because on my side, I feel like we have described a lot of these, and we've tried to like make arguments about many different types of use cases that we want people to achieve in the core protocol. But then people still come on all core devs and say like, we don't know what the use cases are. We don't like know why people want this stuff. And so like, I don't really know how to communicate it in a better way. Like, is it just like more breakout rooms? Is it like we can talk in person? Do we need to write more articles?
I don't know. It's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, like, we also have people from wallet teams here in the community here who are saying very explicitly that we need native account abstraction, and that something like of the shape of frames is achieving the things that they believe. You know, people who are operating smart accounts for the last like 5 to 10 years. And like, I just don't really know what other things that we need to be doing to make a compelling argument to people that there are properties of native account abstraction that most of the other solutions aren't providing that people want. Like, it's a long list of things, and maybe not any individual piece of functionality is the pivotal piece that makes AA worth it all, but it's like in cumulative of all of these different things where gray value is observed.
Okay. I think I would encourage people to Dragon's point, decide what their minimum requirements for this thing are, and also please look at the existing proposals and bring your qualms, your problems with the current ones, so that those authors can be aware of like what people's issues with them are to the AA breakouts that get scheduled. James?
I've been involved in every AA conversation from the beginning of Ethereum. We are not going to reach a design that everyone agrees with. It is not possible in this design space. If something like frames is included, it will be because it has political weight behind it, and that's okay. We can debate this indefinitely. We have debated it for 10 years. We should focus on what is important, the use cases like Matt was talking about, and what is important, the post-quantum migration, which we need to do for all users within the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think that AA should be a blocker for PQ. And coupling those in the design space seems irresponsible.
Pedro. Pedro, we can't hear you. Okay. Julio?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to, before I ask a question that I don't think was answered, but I just want to get like a vibe check. Like how many client teams would rather maybe do frames through schemed instead of going directly for frame for a gota? It's just kind of a temperature check. I don't want to make like a decision or anything.
Possible that people aren't familiar enough or don't want to speak for their whole teams. Do we have any more AA conversation that can't be moved to a breakout call? Yeah, agreed. I don't think that we'll be making any decisions today, minus just having this breakout call where we dive into the specifics. And I would urge people to actually prepare for that and not just come to the call, because having these basic requirements that they want, and maybe proposals to decouple things like post-quantum transactions and AA, and their issues with specific proposals would be very helpful and productive to be on the breakout call. If no more comments on AA, we can move to the miscellaneous smaller items on the agenda. Great. Sina, you wanted to talk about history pruning targets?
Yes, thank you. So I wanted to bring up history pruning targets and specifically thinking about future targets. And to provide a bit of context, you'll remember that a year and a half ago, we sat down at the interop and agreed that from May last year, clients must be able to handle the fact that some other clients on the network may not have pre-merge history. And because of that, we implemented Error 1 and ability imported, exported. And that's kind of where we left things. So since then, many of the clients have added some way to prune parts of the history. And I think there is some divergence in the exact pruning mechanisms that clients have right now. I think, so basically it came up yesterday on Discord on the History Expiry channel that there seems to be different ideas about it. Like two options specifically came up. One is basically setting the next target to be until Pectra. So clients should be fine with having pre-Pectra history pruned. And the other one being rolling expiry, which is like basically its client stores a window and it's a moving window. But I think I've been thinking about it since yesterday, and I would like to suggest a different way of looking at it. And that is basically trying to figure out what is the minimum amount of history that must be kept for the health of the network. And I think as part of that, I also want to bring up this question that like I want to know basically what is the landscape right now. How aggressively can users prune their history with respect to different clients now? So I can tell you, for example, that in Geth, it's possible to prune until merge, as we agreed. It's not the default, so default is to keep all of history. And we recently also added a way to prune until Pectra. I want to know basically, in the most aggressive version, how far can users prune their clients? So if you guys can just chime in here. Yeah, to Barnabas, I would argue that finalize is right. Okay, so Aragon, you can be as aggressive as you want. Barnabas suggesting finalized epoch. I can tell you that one of the requirements that we have in Geth is that we need at least the last 90,000 blocks to be present. This is for social recovery. It's like this mechanism that we have, and I think it's kind of important to have at least that amount of history around. But I'm open to hearing other ideas.
Julio?
Yeah, so I think the pruning target is mostly just, if I may, a political problem. It's just something we agree on. So if you agree that, for example, we decide to do 100,000 blocks rolling window, there can be some client that decides to instead do 200,000. That shouldn't be a problem, right? Like if you, I think you can just define a bound and then every single client can figure it out. If we want to say finalized and Geth wants, I don't know, 9,000 blocks, they can keep on 9,000 blocks. Just, you can keep more than what you're required. You just cannot keep less than what you're required. So just, so all you need to define is a number that is small enough, essentially, that can work under theoretical conditions or under conditions we like. Maybe it's 100,000, maybe it's not the finalized checkpoint. And just use that, and then clients can just figure that out by themselves.
Yeah, agreed. Like nobody is required to prune until that point. It's just we want to make sure, I think, from my perspective, we gotta say like everybody is required to store at least, let's say, a month of history. Just trying to figure out what is a good number.
So if I recall, EAP 444 was saying 1 year, which was kind of agreed upon. Let me look it up.
Yeah, it was 1 year. I think
Yeah.
1 year is a very generous amount.
Yeah, exactly.
But the absolute minimum is the weak subjectivity checkpoint, which I don't know what it is given our validator set size.
14 days.
Okay. So we couldn't do less than 14 days because you want to be able to fully validate from that point on. And so it's a matter of, do we want to have some buffer on that, or is 14 acceptable?
I think we should do at least the blob, the 18-day blob, which is 8,000 epochs, I think.
Barnabas, so that was 18 days?
Yeah, the blob expiry window is, I think, 8,000 epochs, which is 18 or 19 days, something like that.
Yeah, I also hear the fact that like 1 year might be too long. I can also provide some data on this. Basically, I can tell you that the difference from pruning. So Pectra was almost 1 year ago, and the minimum for me is 100K, and the difference between that is around 70 gigabytes of history. So like we're like the gain are quite small, I would say, compared to like once you prune everything before that. So this is like the kind of area that we're talking about. Just to throw out a number, like 1 month. I mean, I don't know if we can make a decision here, but I do want to have some concrete ideas.
Why don't we just suppose? Why don't we just ask the consensus layer what the weak subjectivity period is or point is? Because if it stops finalizing, or I mean that can change. Just picking one just seems kind of arbitrary, right? It's not always going to
Yeah,
be
I
this
mean, I
way.
think we need the fixed period of time plus any unfinalized blocks. But also, I thought the weak subjectivity was not a fixed period. I thought it was something that was a function of how many validators there were and how long it would take for the validator set to fully rotate out and a new one in.
Yeah, that's why I think you have to ask the CL, right?
I think it doesn't update that frequently. For example, with block of access lists, we also needed it because you keep pulse for that period, and there it's 3,530, a little bit more epochs. That's, I think, 18 days or 20 days, something like this.
But is the number of validators in the set not a portion of that function? Like whether or not it may change a lot?
I think it doesn't change a lot. It's definitely part of the
Okay.
function, but it's not like that it updates frequently.
Gotcha.
I think Matt raises a good point. Like, what if we stop finalizing for a week, 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think any numbers that we're coming up with, I mean, I think needs to be the same on blobs, it needs to be the same on vowels. Any number that we come up with, if we're not finalizing, then that we need to be keeping those unfinalized blocks as well as the finite period that we agreed on.
So is any logic against 1 month? Of course, with the caveat of finalized blocks that we have to store them.
A small comment. We have 18 days for blobs because if we stop finalizing, then it will take 18 days for inactivity leak to eject to basically diminish the validator balances of inactive validators to start finalizing again. So these 18 days are taken from that. If as far as I'm recalling.
Okay, so that's different than the weak subjectivity period.
It's not actually a weak subjectivity period, but it's something more.
It just happens that it just happens they're both similar numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. What's our goal here? Do we really want to, get to the minimal gigabyte level on disk footprint, or are we fine with a bit of overhead? Because again, I would vote for some kind of default standard as being somewhat, at least a bit conservative, so that 1 year on 4/4, it's quite much conservative, but maybe something like half a year or 3 months or a quarter should be like the default, in my opinion.
What one possible value in this regard, actually, that's sort of in between, is to match the CL's 33,000 epochs period, which is about 5 months. If people want a little more conservative, the interesting thing there is if you do that, then there's a lot of overlap between what the databases hold. So the CLs and ELs can request data from each other, actually in both directions, depending on what each holds. And I know some align some data, some CLs and ELs both. In any case, if those periods match exactly, that opens up a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, just wanted to make a quick note to what Lukasz said. I think it should be kind of up to the client what they define their what their default, as long as we all agree that the minimum should be kept. So even if the user specifies a window shorter than, let's say, 5 months that we're talking about now, then the client should reject it.
Sina, is there anywhere that people can follow up on this offline or follow what number is being discussed?
Yes, please. There's a history expiry channel on Discord.
Perfect. Anything more on that? Great. Chase, do you want to talk about your request to have devs comment on the new RPC method? Is Chase here? Okay. Well, then I will just copy this link into the chat. And if EL devs can comment on this, Chase is proposing adding a new RPC method and would appreciate comments from execution layer devs. And we will move on to Barnabas for bringing the SSE into the engine API.
Yeah, this is a topic that has been brought up multiple times. So the core change would be to optionally bring SSE over REST and no longer just JSON. This would basically enable performance improvement between the EL and CL. It would allow us to further blob scaling, and hopefully we can do a zero breakage change. So all of this should be optional. No specific EIP is required. Clients could just implement SSD when they have time, and we could do something like capabilities exchange where the CL would basically be able to use the SSD instead of JSON. I can post the execution API PR here, and I'm open for feedback.
Great. That was the last item on the agenda, so unless anybody has anything else, we can close up for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.